There are nights in Oracle Arena and Chase Center alike when the roar of Dub Nation's heart suddenly catches in its throat. And Wednesday proved to be one of those nights tonight where the tide of destiny turned sharply against the Warriors. In a crushing mix of pain, uncertainty, and relentless challenge that could define the course of this entire playoff saga. Welcome back to Warriors News Fan Report, where raw truths collide with splash-era passion. Smash that like button. Subscribe and ring the bell so your heart never misses a beat. Tonight, we're peering deep into a harrowing Game 2 defeat that stings far worse than the 109-94 scoreboard against the young, hungry Houston Rockets, because just when the Warriors were flexing their muscle, just when the momentum seemed poised to surge back in Golden State's favor, the floor literally fell away beneath them in the form of a brutal injury to Jimmy Butler. Late in the first quarter, Butler, whose midseason trade to Golden State had felt like adding pure playoff gravity to a team eager for a new spark, crashed into Amen Thompson under the rim and landed with a sickening thud on his tailbone. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. A camera cut to the bench, where eyes widened in horror. Draymond Green rose, confusion etched on his face, as Butler clutched his lower back, pain radiating through every fiber of his champion's resolve. He staggered to the free throw line, sank his attempt with one hand and a grimace, and limped off to the locker room ruled out with a pelvis contusion. An MRI on Thursday, all that stands between him and Game 3. Think back to the regular seasons. Epic peaks and troughs. An uneven start. Flashes of Curry's brilliance offset by inconsistencies. The early whispers of dynasty dusting off. Then came Butler's arrival in February, and the team caught fire, going 23-8 to enter the playoffs with swagger and purpose. In Game 1, he delivered a vintage playoff Jimmy. Performance: 25 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, reinforcing every fan's belief that he was the missing link, needed to bridge the gap between potential and banner-raising. Now, with that driving force sidelined, the Warriors face a crucible. Can they summon the collective might to fill that void? Or will the absence of their late-game maestro unleash doubt the way a wave erodes a shoreline? Meanwhile, Brandon Podziemski, whose surprise emergence had become one of the season's feel-good stories, battled a stomach illness that saw him curtail his minutes, further thinning out an already stretched rotation. In a playoff atmosphere where every possession is a knife fight and every breath feels like a penalty, losing 2 key contributors turn an uphill battle into a mountain climb one, where every step risks another slip. Yet while Golden State wrestled with its internal chaos, Jalen Green, the Rockets' rising star who had been subdued in Game 1, roared back with an ice-cold vengeance. 38 points, 9 threes, rebounds, assists, and offensive onslaught that left the Bay Area crowd gasping in disbelief. His performance wasn't just a stat line. It was a statement that he belongs on basketball's biggest stage. The lights were bright, he admitted post-game, yet he thrived in that glare, as if dared by destiny to prove he was more than a flash in the pan. Alongside Green, Alperen Sengun's 17-18-7 triple-double in the paint punctured every defensive plan the Warriors threw at them, turning Houston's energy into a force that felt unstoppable. Steph Curry, too, felt the weight of the moment. He poured in 20 points, enough to notch his 4,000th career playoff point and stand beside legends in the NBA's pantheon, but even his trademark gravity defying. Shooting couldn't slow the Rockets' charge. His smile after the milestone felt forced, a brief flicker of pride swallowed by the deeper ache of watching his team falter. If Curry's silhouette still towers as a beacon of hope, Wednesday's contest reminded us how a single night can crack even the strongest foundation. In the locker room, Steve Kerr faced the reporters with that familiar calm veneer, but his voice cracked with the burden of contingency. "Hopefully Jimmy will be able to play," he said, eyes downcast. Behind his words lay a strategic domino puzzle. Do you lean into younger legs like the relentless Kuminga and Moody, or do you scour the buyout market for a veteran Band-Aid until Butler returns? Rumors swirl of Los Angeles scouts inquiring about D'Anthony Melton and Al Horford, whispers of a sign and trade deal to shore up both ends of the floor. Yet any midstream roster tweak risks disrupting the fleeting chemistry that gave us those late-season sparks. And so the Warriors stand at a crossroads, more dramatic than any we've seen since that fateful 2016 Finals collapse. Do they let self-doubt seep in, the way water seeps into cracks, or do they draw on the same underdog fire that powered We Believe and the championship runs that followed? Can Draymond elevate his defensive mastermind to compensate for Butler's absence? Will Klay Thompson, who has battled his own postseason demons, recapture the stroke that once defined Game 6 Klay? Can Andrew Wiggins, often maligned as a perimeter enforcer, summon the confidence to lead the second unit turning gritty defense into open court offense? Beyond the hardwood lies the city itself, where fans gather at bars, at home theaters, in front of silent TVs, hearts in. Throats as they replay every crunching collision and bracing three. The Bay's skyline seems darker without the bright promise of a comfortable lead. Social media bleeds turmoil, some fans lamenting injury luck, others calling for Coach Kerr's head, still others maintaining blind faith that this franchise has survived every storm. And beneath it all, a whisper grows louder. Is this the moment that defines the final chapter of the latest Splash era? Or is it the crucible that forges a deeper, more resilient champion? Across the locker room door, battle plans are scribbled in code, lineups rearranged, practice drills modified to simulate injuries. Role players prep to carry weight they never anticipated. The front office, no doubt, is reviewing every contract clause, every insurance policy, every clause that might protect them if this playoff run morphs into a cruel off-season hangover. But for now, those whispered negotiations behind closed doors feel distant. This fight, this heartbreak, this moment belongs to the players, the coaches, and the fans who bleed gold and royal blue dot as Game 3 looms this Saturday, back in the Bay. It isn't just another date on the calendar. It's the thermometer measuring the Warriors' soul. Will they return with the same fire that defined the first half of this series? Or will the shadow of Butler's injury and Wednesday's collapse cast a pall over a season that once brimmed with promise? The answer lies in the raw, unscripted. Hours before tip-off, when adrenaline and doubt wrestle beneath the city lights, and Dub Nation locks eyes on the screen, willing their team to rise. This saga transcends any single performance or injury report. It's about legacy, about the intangible spirit that lifts a franchise higher than X's and O's ever could. It's about whether the Splash era's defining chapters came to a close here, in the battered aftermath of Game 2, or whether a new verse is waiting to be written in blood, sweat, and tears, one where Curry orchestrates a symphony of comeback. Green overcomes his own shadows, and Butler returns like a gladiator reborn. So drop your unfiltered takes in the comments. Can the Warriors weather this storm without their newest hero? Which X factor will emerge, an overlooked bench threat or a triumphant return by Butler himself? And above all, will this crucible crack them or forge them anew? Whatever happens, we'll be here heart in hand, eyes fixed on the Bay as the next chapter unfolds in what may be the most dramatic playoff run in Dub Nation history. If you felt that gut punch in your chest, the one that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go, then you already know this isn't just a series anymore. It's a crucible burning down the molten steel where every Warriors medal is tested. Jimmy Butler going down with that pelvis contusion? That's not just an injury report sliding quietly under the radar. It's a seismic blow to the soul of this team, the kind that sends shockwaves through every game plan, every timeout, every whispered strategy in the huddles behind closed doors at Chase. What if Jimmy sitting out Game 3 isn't just a wait and see scenario, but the pivot point that flips this playoff narrative on its head? Think about the chain reaction. The Warriors losing the heartbeat of their defensive tenacity and playmaking swagger. The razor-edge decision-making that Butler brought every single possession. The kind of clutch that can carve out a win even when everything feels broken. Without him, suddenly the offense feels thinner. The bucket's harder to come by, and that pressure? It all funnels through Steph, Klay, Draymond guys who've carried dynasties, but whose bodies and spirits are etched with every playoff scar and playoff breath. And yes, Steph hitting 4,000 playoff points is legendary, but legends aren't bulletproof. They carry the weight of every defense that schemes just to take that shot away. Every moment where fatigue sets in like a shadow at midnight. The Rockets, led by a barely contained Inferno and Jalen Green, didn't just rally. They flipped the script. They realized that to take down the Dubs, they needed to breathe fire, not just in flashes, but in sustained bursts, and Green's 38 points, doubling his threes from Game 1? That's a spark lighting a wildfire of doubt deep in the Golden State psyche. A young star punching back hard against the dynasty that stood guard over this league for over a decade. The whispers. In the locker room? You can almost hear them. What if we're no longer the team they fear? What if the Warriors aren't the invincible splash era they once were, but just a team clinging to fading echoes? Draymond's voice, usually the thunder in the storm, must ring heavier right now. Kuminga and Moody chasing more than points chasing. Relevance, legacy, and identity amid swirling questions about their roles now that the cavalry looks stretched impossibly thin. Even Kerr, the masterful chess player known for poise under pressure, can't disguise the cracks in their armor after Wednesday's humiliation. His hint toward hope and contingency reads like an admission that tactical adjustments have to double down on improvisation, on raw grit over scripted precision. And that gap left by Brandon Podziemski fighting illness? That's an invisible thief, stealing moments, lessening options, tightening the noose in a series already leaning precariously. So who steps into that void? The depth chart suddenly looks like a thin line drawn in wet sand against the rising tide of Houston's youthful fury. What if Wiggins can't find his footing again? What if Moody's flashes of brilliance remain just that, flashes, and the rest of the roster's collective punching power isn't enough to outlast a Rockets team hungry for recognition and revenge? From a dynasty that 3 years ago seemed untouchable with 5 straight finals appearances and 3 rings in 4 years, the Warriors now find themselves navigating this silent storm of doubt and what-ifs, a test not just of skills but of raw belief. Is this the fracture, the splinter in the golden veneer that will mark the end of the era, the moment where the league moves on without the Warriors as its flagship? Or is this the ignition of a fierce comeback, a crucible fire that will forge a new chapter of resilience, one where Curry, the ageless man-child shooter, reclaims his mantle, where Clay's silky stroke finds the green light once more, where Draymond's defensive wizardry and Yoda-like mindset conjure magic from chaos, and where the next generation Kuminga, Moody bursts through the shadows to carry the banner forward with the kind of fearless tenacity that the Warriors have always demanded. I feel it deep in my bones. This moment is as thick with tension as any Game 7, any buzzer beater in Oracle's last glorious years. This is about more than wins and losses. It's about identity, about legacy forged in the crucible of adversity. It's about whether the dynasty's heartbeat is strong enough to outlast the tremors racing through its foundations. As someone who's lived through every missed shot, every parade down Market Street, every gut-wrenching loss and soul-stirring championship, I'm telling you straight, I sense something seismic coming. It's not just a game, not just a series. Turnaround? It's a defining crossroads where Dub Nation either rallies harder than ever or watches the tides pull the dynasty back into history's depths. So I want you, yes you, the lifeblood of this movement, to lay it all out right here. What's your gut now? Can the Warriors overcome the absence of a warrior like Jimmy? Will Steph shoulder this weight with the grace we've seen 1,000 times? Or is fatigue in the relentless march of time finally starting to edge in? Are the new kids ready to step out of the shadows? Or will the Rockets continue this firestorm of retribution? I don't want soft takes or wishful thinking. I want raw, unfiltered passion and tough truths. Drop your hottest, most fiery, no holds barred takes in the comments below. I'll be right there, swallowing every word, ready to throw down every challenge. Because if there's one thing this team has taught us, It's that no matter how dark the night, Dub Nation's roar can still shake the very walls of the Chase Center. The question is, do we have that roar in us tonight?